He is 6'2", he will do you. It's Ollie, 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 Ollie Giroud. It's Ollie, 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 Ollie Giroud. It's Oliver, Oliver, Oliver Giroud. He was 6'2", he will do you. When he scores past you, you'll go to the loo. He is 6'2", he will do you. It's Oliver, Ollie, Ollie, Ollie Giroud. It's Ollie, 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 Ollie Giroud. He will score past you, you will need the loo. It's Ollie, Ollie, Ollie Giroud. It's Ollie, Ollie, Ollie Giroud. He's a gunner, he's a gunner. It's Ollie, 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 Ollie Giroud. Ollie, 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 Ollie Giroud.
Wow, there is a lot to unpack there. I would understand if some of you needed a moment. Much like the finest works of Nietzsche or Hemingway, the author is punchy, concise and economical in his prose, packing an awful lot in to what is only actually 16 stanzas in 43 seconds. So, like a GCSE English teacher getting a chub on over the symbolism of Ava drinking disinfectant in an inspector calls, let's analyse the form, structure and language employed by the author in what I think we can all agree it wouldn't be too grandiose a term to describe as a masterpiece. We start by establishing that the protagonist is a 6'2" male, his height presumably constituting a key characteristic to the narrative later on, otherwise why would it be the first thing that we find out about him? Bazinga, that's exactly what the author wanted you to think. That is the first booby trap that you've fallen straight into, but believe me, it won't be the last. Still in the first stanza, we discover that the unidentified male is going to do you, which sounds rather menacing, though no further details are provided. Cleverly there, the author allows the reader or listener to let their own minds wander in regard to what that vague verb may convey. Next up, after doing you, and this is an unusual inversion of the traditional form given that it's typically the other way round, the protagonist is revealed to us as a Mr. Ollie, 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 Ollie Giroud. And before you know it, he's only gone and done you again. Mr. Giroud follows that up by scoring past us, which is somewhat unsurprising, after he's already done us twice, with his attention now firmly back on the football. But less predictable, perhaps, is the response that is invoked in us, namely, sending us straight to the toilet. In fairness, after I've been done, twice no less in a single session, I do tend to make a visit. It's just good hygiene. Before you know it, Mr. Giroud, who is still 6'2", we're reminded, has done us again, beginning what would appear to be an eternal cycle of the protagonist imposing his height upon us, doing us, scoring past us, sending us straight to the toilet, and then doing us again. Except, second time around, we don't actually get to go to the toilet, we just need to go. Whether our urge for a second toilet visit is ever satisfied isn't specified, leaving open the possibility of being stuck in an eternal time loop, but being denied the ability to privately pass fluids. At first you could be forgiven for thinking that this is a work of fiction, a short piece of dystopian verse, in which case it would be quite good. But it is, in fact, a football chant about former Arsenal centre-forward Olivier Giroud. I know that because it is titled Olivier Giroud Arsenal Chant, in which case, it is very bad. For a start, Olivier Giroud is 6'4", so the chant is already wrong, just 5 words in. And his first name is neither Ollie nor Oliver, as stated, nor is his surname Giroud. Given that, and I did look this up, there is no suggestion that Giroud's goals have ever forced an opponent to go to the toilet, or even brought about that urge, the cynic in me is beginning to think that do you and the loo were only used because they rhyme with 6'2". And given that, as we've already established, Giroud isn't 6'2", he's 6'4", the entire rhyming couplet upon which the chant is based is not only nonsensical, but based upon a fundamental lie. So that is a bad football chant. And now that I've spent more than 3 minutes dunking on an 11-year-old video of someone who probably wasn't much older than that when they recorded it, how very brave of you, Alfie, it is time to get into the subject of today's video, which, aptly, is terrible chants. Now, the Giroud will do you so hard that you'll soil yourself classic never made it as far as the terraces at the Emirates, at least as far as I'm aware, and nor did this one.
Oliver Giroud, Oliver Giroud, we love you Giroud. When he gets past your defence, you're screwed.
But some just as tragic rallying cries have. I mean, as bad as the Giroud goal defecate chant might have been, it's probably preferable to when Arsenal fans sang, "It should have been you, it should have been you," "Shot in Angola, it should have been you," at Emmanuel Adebayor. A reference to when 3 people were killed and a further 9 injured in a terrorist attack on Togo's team bus at the 2010 African Cup of Nations in Angola. Don't get me wrong, there are still some sick chants sung on the terraces now, but it is fairly remarkable to think how much things have changed just in my lifetime. I can remember being in Hull City away ends as a kid that chanted about Arsene Wenger being a sex offender. There was one that was sung against West Ham about all Northerners being wife beaters and all Southerners being homosexuals, with the implication there being that somehow the former was preferable to the latter, and even chants taunting Queen's Park Rangers fans about the London bombings back in 2005, in which more than 50 people were killed. And there were several teams who were much worse offenders than us. There is something about football and being within a crowd that just causes people's brains to fall out. It's quite strange, really. I won't be including so-called tragedy chants in this 7, even though they are objectively probably the worst chants, because that would be a fairly depressing watch, and by the end of it, I might have eroded any remaining faith that you have left in humanity. I will still be including some morally dubious ones though, just not explicit tragedy chants. Basically, Manchester United fans sing about South Koreans eating dogs and Scousers eating rats to Park Ji-sung, simultaneously insulting their rivals and the home country of one of their own players, would be eligible, but singing about Hillsborough, Munich, or any of football's many other disasters would not. Mauled by the Tigers, obviously, doesn't feature. I said the worst chants, not the best. Right, without further ado, and what an intro this has been by the way, you couldn't accuse me of being as terse as Nietzsche or Hemingway, here are 7 truly dreadful football chants. 7th, Chelsea, Chelsea, Chelsea. In the pantheon of terrible chants, there is no place better to start than with Chelsea. It's important to note, in the interest of balance, that Chelsea aren't the only club to just shout the name of their team on repeat, as if that somehow made it a legitimate chant. Everton fans do likewise, to a slightly different tune, something along the lines of Everton, 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 and I'm sure you can think of lots of other clubs who do something very similar. Hull City fans used to chant City-ol, City-ol, City-ol to the same tune, which, and I know it's not much, but I at least feel like switching the words from Hull City to City Hull, even if that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, is slightly more inventive. Nonetheless, whilst others may be at it, Chelsea are the worst offenders. And there is something about the sheer monotony of the Chelsea, Chelsea, Chelsea chant, combined with what I assume is a West London accent. I'm from East Yorkshire, it's all foreign to me, that makes Chelsea's iteration sound like a slow march towards death. I suppose that is all that life is, just an incessant and guaranteed march towards inevitable nothingness, but I don't go to football to be reminded of that fact. Any match-going football fan, especially those who've tried to start a chant, which I used to do a lot, will be well aware of the difficulties of getting people on board with anything that features more than probably about 8 words. I remember having an entire song for Giovanni that was about a minute long, and within a week, it had just been reduced to the chorus. I get that. The shorter and the easier to remember, the more likely it is to catch on. But, come on, let's have some self-respect. Surely Chelsea fans can take a 5-minute break from being racist on Twitter, with a bio that says love the Blues and my 2 kids, and come up with something a bit better than that. No? Oh well, the slow march towards death it is then, I suppose. Chelsea, 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 Chelsea. 6th, by far the greatest team. My pet peeve in football, and I will let you in on a little secret, outside of outright racism and abuse, I don't really care that much about what any club chants. None of this matters at all, sorry. But my closest thing to a pet peeve outside of that are the tedious, unimaginative chants that about 87 out of the 92 Football League teams in England sing. Some variation of "Oh when the Saints" is much too common. That should be reserved solely for Southampton. E-I-E-I-E-I-O, up the Football League we go, though I do have a special affinity for that, due to associations with Hull City's rise through the divisions in the 2000s. And more recently, the one that goes, "We've got Super Peter Sutcliffe, he knows exactly what we need, Bobby Daver up the back, Denise Welch in attack," and so on and so forth, has become way too common to ever be interesting. I did change some of the names there so that it wasn't club specific. I'm unaware of that version ever having been sung, and whilst I don't support what Sutcliffe, Davro or Welch did, that adaptation would at least be a little bit more surprising to hear inside of a football ground. The worst offender of all in this category, though, surely has to be, "We're by far the greatest team the world has ever seen, and it's some rubbish League 2 team. Some rubbish League 2 team FC." You get the idea. Not only do about 200 clubs fans sing it, therefore rendering it automatically terrible, but it's also a rubbish chant that sounds terrible. It also has a slight death march feel to it, and in almost all cases, it's not just a barefaced lie, but absurdly dishonest. If Barcelona fans sang it between 2008 and 2012, it would still be boring, I assume. I mean, maybe it would sound better in Catalan, but at least there would be a grain of truth to it. If Hungary's faithful, likewise, had serenaded Puskás, Hidegkuti and Kocsis with it in the early to mid-1950s, you'd have had to have said fair enough. When Newport County fans, while languishing in the bottom half of the League 2 table, are singing about being by far the greatest team that the world has ever seen, questions have to be asked. Such as, the best team at what? Because it certainly isn't football. At singing the same song as everyone else, but it making even less sense? Perhaps. And if that is what they mean, then there is a sort of tautology to it that I can respect. To be honest, if you can prove to me that that is the case, I'll take it off the list, no questions asked, and say fair play to everyone singing it. Fifth, 10 German bombers. I said I wouldn't include so-called tragedy chants in this 7, but one could certainly argue that tragedies don't come much greater than World War II, in which more than 50 million people lost their lives. Now, don't get me wrong, I am glad that the Germans lost the Second World War. I am happy to get that on the record. I also think that Idi Amin was a bit of a dick and that putting cats in blenders is quite mean to them. And if German bombers being shot down, particularly in the Battle of Britain, encouraged or accelerated that outcome, then it was a desirable event in the most undesirable of circumstances. There is a very good reason, however, why chants like 10 German bombers, 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup, and Stand Up If You Won the War didn't take off among England fans until the 1990s. And that's because it wasn't until the 1990s that most of the people who actually fought in World War II had either died or at least constituted a vanishingly small number of match and tournament attending football fans. Of course, any chant of "Stand Up If You Won the War" ought to be met now with a stadium or town square full of people sitting down, unless it's actually referring to the Falklands or something, in which case, why do we only sing it against Germany? Instead, it is met with a bunch of boozed up footy fans whose only scrap was with some Poland fans in Dusseldorf the night before, and the closest they've ever come to a war zone being the Black Friday sale at the big Tesco when there was a 2-for-1 deal on Carling, acting as though they were marshals in the RAF 4 decades before they were born. When we landed in Germany for the 2006 World Cup, England fans were reminded that it was illegal in Germany to goose-step or do Nazi salutes, and a load of them still did it. It is a sort of bizarre cosplaying, totally devoid of any actual respect for the war dead, and almost no one who experienced the misery of World War II would be so tasteless or crass. I'm not particularly precious about fans invoking off-field issues in chants, even if it might seem like it in this segment, but the issues they pick sometimes are just so bizarre. I was once at a game where fans spontaneously began chanting, "The Falklands are ours," at Pablo Zabaleta. It is sort of amusing, but I'm not sure that there is any other industry in the world where you'd end up with thousands of people shouting that at you purely because you're Argentinian. Basically, 10 German bombers is rubbish, it should be retired, like the 1 World Cup and 2 World Wars basically has been, and 5-1, even Heskey scored, is an infinitely better, funnier, and more damning chant by any metric. Fourth, marching on together. Leeds fans, come at me. I'm willing to die on this hill. I should say, I think almost all football club anthems are dreadful. That's it, Alfie. Alienate half your audience instead of just Leeds fans. Attaboy. Marching on together is the worst, though, in my view, because it sounds terrible, the lyrics are awful, and the whole scarf-twirling thing makes me want to die inside. Maybe, like Mauled by the Tigers, it is meant to be ironic, in a sort of, we know that this is embarrassing, that's the joke kind of way, but I don't get that impression. If I'm wrong, Leeds fans, feel free to correct me in the comments and I shall retract everything that I've said, but I don't think that's the case. Maybe it's just me, but from the first line, I think that it just sort of sounds like a high-pitched whining noise, a bit like the sound of a V1 flying bomb, which, incidentally, is what I hope will drop on my head and explode whenever I hear it. The lyrics are about as banal and vacuous as you could possibly dream up. We've been through it all together, we're going to see you win, etc, etc. Like if you asked AI to rate an anthem for a football club, but then prompted it to make it worse, about 8 times, until you ended up with marching on together. Sorry Leeds fans, but it's a racket, I hate it, and I'm glad that I only have to hear it twice a season. Third, fight and win. I feel bad for including this because I've slagged off boring and predictable chants in this video, and yet here I am, including the most boring and predictable inclusion. English football fans view American soccer fans as being sort of sanitised and a little bit cringy, and I think this clip, along with the USA, USA, USA chant, just sort of plays into that narrative and stereotype. Also, this guy just looks possessed.
Come on, Seattle! Fight and win!
It's the way he nods after every line, like he's just dropped the sickest diss track of 2K13 or delivered a sonnet worthy of Shakespeare, rather than, just having shouted, "Come on Seattle," and "fight and win" each time. I actually find American fan culture, in terms of the relative newness of it, and how in typically American style it is a sort of melting pot of all different cultures, with some naffness added in for good American measure, and I don't think that Fight and Win Man, nor indeed I suspect this brief clip of him that is all that most non-Americans have ever seen, is representative. Nonetheless, it is terrible, so regrettably predictably but sticking true to the video's title, I'm afraid it has to feature. Second, Chelsea Ranger. I honestly can't believe that I haven't put this top. A bit like a plane crash, insofar as you know that it's a travesty unfolding, but somehow you can't take your eyes or ears away. If you've never heard a Chelsea fan deliver the Chelsea Ranger chant, then allow me to ruin your life. I'm afraid that you have lived a charmed existence for far too long.
I wanna be a Chelsea Ranger! I wanna be a Chelsea Ranger! I wanna live a life of danger! I wanna live a life of danger! I wanna beat yous every week! I wanna beat yous every week! Chase them up and down the street! Chase them up and down the street! Here's to the girl that I love best! Here's to the girl that I love best! Every night I suck her breast! Every night I suck her breast! Shag her standing! Shag her standing! Shag her lying! Shag her lying! If she had wings! If she had wings! I'd shag her flying! Shag her flying! Now she's dead! Now she's dead! But not forgotten! Not forgotten! Dig her up! Dig her up! Shag her rotten! Shag her rotten!
I mean, where to start? Oh, what the hell. We might as well start with the first few verses, I suppose. It starts off with, "I wanna be a Chelsea Ranger." Alrighty then, so far so intriguing. I wonder what that entails. I want to live a life of danger. Oh, alright. A life of danger apparently. What kind of danger, I bet you're wondering. I want to beat yids every week, chase them up and down the street. Well, boy, that sure did take a turn for the worst. For the uninitiated, yid is an anti-Semitic term used to describe Jewish people, and, in the context of English football, it is chiefly associated with Spurs fans due to the club's Jewish roots. Some Spurs fans refer to themselves in chants as yids, ostensibly in an effort to reappropriate the word, in a similar way to how some black movements have done likewise with anti-black racial slurs. I suspect Chelsea fans who use the word would cite that as a justification, but I would just ask, how would you interpret it if someone chanted about beating up black people and chasing them up and down the street while using a slur that black people have attempted to reclaim? Yeah, not very charitably, I'd imagine. Following a bit of anti-Semitism, we get a touching and increasingly graphic love story, and then, out of nowhere, and with zero explanation, the girl involved dies. The line announcing this truly tragic news reads, and I quote, I wouldn't want to get it wrong, "Now she's dead." That's all we get on that one. This is the girl that he loved best just a moment ago, but there is an awful sort of callousness in response to her presumably untimely and premature passing. I suppose that is to prepare us for what happens next, though I'm not sure that anything could fully prepare any first-time listener to the heel turn that gets dropped in the last stanza. Namely, necrophilia. There must, presumably, given the orchestrated nature of the chant, be Chelsea fans who joined in at first thinking, yeah, I want to be a Chelsea Ranger, why not? And then, hang on, that sounds a bit anti-Semitic. And then before you know it, oh, I'm a necrophiliac now, in for a penny, in for a pound. Yeah, it's not the best. On second thoughts, maybe Chelsea fans should just stick to repeatedly shouting the word Chelsea rather than getting any more adventurous. I'm only joking, Chelsea fans. I know that you're not really all anti-Semitic necrophiliacs. You don't have to point that out in the comments. First, arrgh. I don't really know what else to title this one other than arrgh. And given that, off the back of that, you probably have zero idea what I'm talking about, I'd probably best start by playing the clip.
Oh, your shit, fuck off, we're on the town,
Alright, I'll level with you. I'm not totally sure whether this is the best or worst chant in football. To begin with, the you're not very good, when a goalkeeper takes a goal kick, is another chant that not only loads of clubs do, thus rendering it awful by default, but one that would be terrible even if it was unique. I suppose the version that I just played for you is a little bit different, to its credit, but for all of the wrong reasons. With the sheer amount of R's in there, you could be forgiven for thinking that it was a chant dreamt up by Blackbeard and first performed aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge pirate ship. You wouldn't be too far wrong. It is actually Chesterfield fans, most of whom, like pirates, live a life of crime and suffer from scurvy due to a lack of vitamin C in their diets. I'm sorry, Chesterfield fans, honestly. I have been to the SMH Group Stadium, and that wasn't my experience at all. Really, I will say anything for cheap laughs on YouTube. I'm shameless. I'm not going to analyse this one, I could never do it justice. Like the finest works of Goethe or Shakespeare, demystifying it would remove some of the art and majesty, so instead, I will just play it one more time, and ask you to pay particular attention to the very last R.
Fuck off, we're on the town,
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm sorry. I take it all back. It is definitely the best. There's not even any anti-Semitism or necrophilia in there. Really, I don't know what I was thinking. Do you know what? Swap it out, put Manchester United's Anthony Martial chant in 7th, and bump everyone else up a place. I heard that sung at Old Trafford this season. Any chant that includes the line, Tony Marshall scores again, as if it were a frequent occurrence, in 2023, deserves to feature. I know technically you only need to have scored 2 goals to have scored again, but I'm fairly sure that it is within the spirit of that song to suggest that he scores quite often. Martial has 1 in 12 in the Premier League this season, 2 in 18 in all competitions, and he hasn't hit double figures in a single season in over 4 years. In total, he scored 63 goals in 208 games at Old Trafford. Yeah, I think it is time to retire the chant, lads, and accept that, but for 2 good seasons and factoring in his wages during that time, it has probably been a damn sight more than 50 million down the drain. Right, anyway, that's it for today's video, but thank you all very much, as ever, for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and of course, goes without saying, make sure that you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for both this channel, HITC Sevens, and also my second channel, Alfie Potsama, both of which should be about to appear on your screens now, along with a couple of videos that YouTube thinks you might enjoy watching after this one. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads via the username at HITC Sevens on all 3, should you wish to do so, and all of those links plus a whole lot more should be down in the video description below. Cheers.